An immediate call for the abolishment of all nuclear weapons and an absolute demilitarization. By guest author March 28, 2023 guest article by Paul Saleh.
To all reasonable, peace-loving human beings of Earth, call for the immediate abolishment of all nuclear weapons and an absolute demilitarization now. An excerpt from the book Erdenmenschheit, strebe, endlich, nach Frieden und Freiheit, statt, nach Krieg und Terror, Earth Humanity, finally strive for peace and freedom instead of war and terror, by Eduard Albert Meier. Eduard Albert Meier, pages 110 to 111. Note, this is an unofficial translation.
Effective fact is namely, that as long as there are still nuclear weapons, the great and uncontrollable danger exists always and at any time, that they can be brought to use through carelessness or consciously through some maniac. There exists also always the great and undeniable danger that a technical malfunction, evil human affectations, an unforeseeable causal foreordination, or a natural catastrophe, etc., could trigger off a nuclear catastrophe. All of these possibilities, as also many others, demand of the state mighty ones, governors, and all military mighty ones, as well as of all of the international community, and with that of the entire world population, that absolutely all nuclear weapons are forbidden and destroyed. And that may not only be a wish of the earthly humankind, but it must be their imperative striving towards it, and their duty, to implement it as quickly as possible into reality. Therefore every human being must internalize this and never become weary, to always repeat this demand, to repeatedly demand of the responsible ones of the state leaders and the military, that all nuclear weapons must finally be destroyed and forbidden. This corresponds to a reasonable necessity, to preserve all life on the earth, as the necessity, however, also demands a drastic reduction of the overpopulation through an immediate worldwide birth stop, followed by a reasonable and logical ongoing birth rate regulation in a humane way, to ensure the planet-given human population of 529 million is not surpassed, which in the present time has already laid the groundstone for a world-encompassing catastrophe in many ways, which will put into question the greater part of all life on Earth in the future. Yet the dismantling and the prohibition regarding the nuclear weapons is likewise urgent and as important as all the necessary measures for the preservation of all life of the nature, the fauna and flora, of the planet, and the humankind itself. In the same way as the reduction of the earthly overpopulation, the dismantling of all nuclear weapons must be carried out. Consequently, reason and rationality is demanded of all of the state mighty ones, and governors, as also of the entire humankind. Regarding the world and military politics, this means that in the future, war and terror as well as sneaky secret service acts can only be prevented, and peace can be created, if a determination for a demilitarized world and military politics is set, and this is also implemented, achieved, and then adhered to. And such a demilitarization of the world and military politics must on the one hand take place in every single state of the earth, as likewise with regard to all international relations. Fundamentally, the reality and its truth is thereby this, that the majority of all earthly peoples also reject the use of military Gewalt, as well as all unjust state Gewalt. State mighty ones, mighty governors, politicians and military mighty ones, who in their delusion believe their might megalomania, that they could solve problems and strife or further differences through war, terror or any other conflicts as a final means, must be deposed by the peoples and relieved of their positions. State, government, and military mighty ones, who do not fundamentally strive towards peace and freedom, but instead heckle in their unreason and in their delusion towards war, terror, Gewalt, battle and conflict, are to be deposed by the peoples from their might platforms, kicked to the curb and made mightless, so they can no longer wreak havoc. Therefore it must be that all such elements vacate their military, political, government as well as state might platforms to make way for suitable, peaceful, for the good of the people, honest, virtuous, and righteous leaders.
These wise words of Billy Eduard Albert Meier are to be heeded and implemented by all human beings, as they correspond to an absolute necessity, and the only true path towards a life on earth that truly represents a just, good, and honorable creational existence for all life. Here are now a few words from Quetzal from the 215th contact from February 28, 1987, 2:09 a.m., excerpts from the pamphlet, What the Plejarans Wish for the Human Beings on Earth.
Real peace as well as true love and freedom have finally to prevail on earth and among all human beings, regardless of color of skin, race, and trend in religious thinking, without hatred, revenge, envy, retaliation, hardship, misery, murder, manslaughter, terror, and wars. It has to come to an end that countries of the planet Earth, even the poorest and the most underdeveloped among them, maintain armies that are armed to the teeth and senselessly squander innumerable amounts of money which could and should be used for the true welfare of human beings. Therefore, it has to end that politicians and military as well as various organizations everywhere in the world talk of peace, freedom, love, and humaneness, on the one hand, to justify the immense financial expenditures, and on the other hand, to get hold of even more funds for the purpose of war and terror, and to speed up war machinery and its industry, so that further acts of terror and wars can be carried out with new weapons. Unfortunately, human beings of Earth have given high priority or first rank to political, economic, military, material, and financial values. But this is a false value and causes tremendous damage. Thereby, the well-being of the physical body and the body of the psyche will be just as much harmed as the consciousness-related development of every human being, and even of all humankind. As a result, the truly wise ones and philosophers have disappeared, which allowed the wannabes, in regard to wisdom and philosophy, to inundate the world and humankind with horrendous nonsense that has nothing to do with reality, correctness, and conformity to the laws of creational energies and the creation. All these worthless values have to be redressed, so that the true wise ones are able to return again to their due places in society. It has to be made possible for the few presently living on Earth to come out of their hidden, solitary places in order to teach human beings. At the same time, all of those have to be thrust aside who disseminate unreasonable sectarian teachings and principles, which will lead human beings of Earth astray and away from the real, veritable truth. Human beings of Earth have to learn not only to run after material things and money all through their life. They ought not to listen to human beings who have gained enormous political and military power or accumulated immense fortunes. And they must not strive after them nor resemble them and not dedicate their time, work, and effort to them and not their initiative, drive, and life. Yet if human beings will do that, they forfeit their evolution and therefore the meaning of their existence. And if they do not lose their lives accidentally, they become dependent on the mighty in power of political, dictatorial, and military institutions, and the well-to-do scream yes and hurrah, and instead of becoming a true being, that is to say human being, they become a shadow of a being that only seems to be. The human being of Earth has to free himself or herself of the different political, dictatorial, military, as well as science and faith-related movements. This alone guarantees, on the one hand, to discover and follow the path of truth of creation and its laws and recommendations, and on the other hand, a loving, peaceful, free, wise, and harmonious functioning of individual human beings and all humankind. In truth, not any movement of political, military, economic, scientific, philosophical, and faith-related form must be allowed to dominate over any other movement. However, if such domination exists, rivalries, hatred, racism, faith-related and political quarrels develop as also discord, repression, heartlessness, ignorance, and many more forms of negative attitudes. They lead to destruction, murder, and manslaughter, as also to deceitfulness and actions of war.
And finally, from the same pamphlet,
it lies within the individual human being's power to change the world, that is to say, the human beings, if he or she feels the need actively to do so, however, only in being an example to his or her fellow men and women. Therefore, each human being has first to begin with the change by him or herself for the better, peaceful, loving, free, and progressive, as also towards knowledge and wisdom, and to discover for him or herself the path to a life in freedom and happiness. At first, each human being has to acquire an optimistic attitude. Only then, the progress and expansion will be possible. This will encourage and stimulate the fellow members close to you, who will be pulled along. And when human beings think consciously about this possibility, they will make the remarkable discovery that all means and hopes for a true progress lie in every respect only in oneself.